What's up, everyone, and welcome to Clear Talk. So, in this video, we're going to be talking about the mega warehouse detention centers, aka concentration camps, that the administration has been buying up all across the United States, or attempting to buy up, anyways. Although they are getting some pretty stern backlash from local communities about this. This is all in an attempt to advance and accelerate the mass deportation efforts that the administration, has been, attempting so far. So we're going to go over the details here and talk about this because I think it is majorly important and concerning from this administration. So thank you very much for joining me here. If you are new to Clear Talk, welcome. If you want to check out more videos from the channel, please do so. Consider subscribing, like, share, comment, all the good stuff to get more videos in front of more people. Commenting is huge. Please comment as much as possible. Even if if it's good or bad, doesn't matter. Just comment. That helps out a lot. If you want to check out videos from my other channels, you have JMD there, Play, Puzzling. If you see what like what you see there, consider subscribing to those channels as well to help grow those channels. Patreon there, $3 a month. You support any of the channels that you would like to help grow those channels, help grow Patreon, help grow the JMD Nation, and contribute however you would like. Any contribution or support you give is very much appreciated. And I thank you very, very much. Helps keep me going on this, make this full time, keep this full time, which I would love to do to continue to grow this. And yeah, that would be amazing. If you're returning, you're freaking amazing. You are amazing. Welcome back. Thank you. Keep coming back over and over again because you are what makes JMD Nation. Okay, so we're gonna swap over here. Have a article here from Bloomberg. There's multiple outlets that are reporting on this. I don't want to like have just multiple places I'm trying to like go from, so I kind of picked the one that I feel like has the best breakdown of it, I suppose. Whatever. ICE begins buying mega warehouse detention centers across the United States. Plans for such centers and jails in nearly 24 communities have sparked protest over suitability, proximity to homes and schools. Despite protests in small cities and towns across the U.S., the Trump administration has pushed ahead with the purchase of warehouses it plans to convert into immigration jails in what could be the largest expansion of such detention capacity in U.S. history. All right, we have seen here, we've had multiple, backlashes and stuff from the ICE raids and stuff that have been going on across, cities across America, the biggest being in Minnesota. We are seeing the administration at the moment make kind of claims and stuff that they are going to kind of pull back in Minnesota, and like relieve and pull out ICE agents, decrease there to the point of like complete pullout. I think there's still some operations going on. I'm not completely sure about that right now, but the intent is for them to completely pull out of there. And they're kind of now making this move where they're trying to act like they're easing the tensions and calming down, and they're pulling agents and federal agents and stuff from like all the cities because there's been such a rapid outcry and backlash from citizens, and it's starting to really not look good. I mean, you've had the changeover here with no one being pulled from the area and Homan being put in place. That big dog, I can't remember his name now. That was like the head agent or whatever. He was pulled from his area. And I mean, it's just all around. There's been reports from DHS, a lot of chaos going on within the department. We're going to even look. I'm going to even go over here at the end here about how Trisha McLaughlin, which has like been the big face of DHS outside of Noam, to do a lot of the like publicity and like media work or whatever. Just complete trash individual here. She has done nothing but lie and cover in the most despicable ways for this administration through this entire thing. Horrible, horrible human being here. She is actually apparently on the leave from the administration, which is crazy. It's been so much backlash that people are leaving. They're being pushed out or leaving. It's crazy. But amidst all of that, though, these secret plans of buying up these facilities on the down low as much as possible. Sometimes some of these purchases have went without the local local residents and officials and stuff even knowing until it's already bought, which is crazy. But anyway, so the cost for acquiring 2 warehouses alone was $172 million. A third in El Paso, Texas, could be among the largest jails of any kind in the country if completed as envisioned, with 8,500 beds. The deals mark the latest turn in U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement plan to use as many as 23 warehouses for detaining thousands of immigrants arrested by federal agents in Minneapolis and other cities. Those aggressive enforcement actions have ignited clashes with protesters and led to agents killing 2 U.S. citizens. On January 16th, the administration paid $102 million for a site near Hagerstown, Maryland, according to a local court filing. A week later, the government paid $70 million in cash for a warehouse in Surprise, Arizona. The price tags, roughly in line with the industry average for the warehouse market, cover just the acquisition of the sites, which are currently empty shells. ICE still has to pay companies to outfit the building with toilets, showers, beds, dining, and recreation areas, and then run them as detention centers. So, I mean, we're talking about this. The administration has, been all about big on, just, not spending money, saving money, blah, 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 blah. I mean, you have the whole tariff argument by them, shutting down agencies and trying to attempt to like cut out support and assistance to American families all over the country, whether it be through food assistance or or even cutting out Medicaid, all these different things to try to cut down payments. But a lot, and then of course the tax cuts and all this bullshit. But yeah, here they are spending millions and millions of dollars to buy up these warehouses to build concentration camps, to house and detain immigrants. That's to me like wild. That's wild. A week later, the government. Okay, well, sorry. Blah, 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 blah. The El Paso site was purchased by the Department of Homeland Security recently, according to people familiar with the transaction who asked not to be named, discussing a confidential process. But the sales price hasn't yet been publicly made public. As the political pressure intensifies, some deals are collapsing. Canadian billionaire Jim Paddington Company said Friday that a transaction to sell its 550 square foot warehouse in Ashland, Virginia will not be proceeding. Earlier in the week, the company said it had initially agreed to sell the facility to the U.S. government contractor, but that sometime later we became aware of the ultimate owner and intended use of the building. It added, "We understand that the conversation around immigration policy and enforcement is particularly heated and has become much more so over the past few weeks. We respect that this issue is deeply important to many people." So, I mean, that even comes off as if the government is trying to even hide the purpose for buying some of these facilities. And then until it's, through the process, it's being revealed to some people and being like, whoa, no, we don't actually agree with that. On Thursday, Oklahoma City Mayor David Holt said that he'd met with the owners of the warehouse identified by ICE, who told him they were no longer going to sell or lease the facility to the agency. I commend the owners for their decision and thank them on behalf of the people of Oklahoma City, Holt said. I ask that every single property owner in Oklahoma City exhibit the same concern for our communities in the days ahead. The warehouses, many of which originally were designed and marketed as e-commerce distribution facilities, represent a significant pivot for the administration's $45 billion immigration detention build out. So they have put forth around $45 billion, which is like an increase from its original. Originally, I think I saw it was budgeted around $10 billion, and they have more and more like added to that. To now, it is a staggering $45 billion that they are trying to budget for this mass, deportation effort, in building and buying up these warehouses to try to create these detention centers. Last year, it relied on tent camps constructed in remote places like the Florida Everglades and an Army base in Texas, as we know, like the Alligator Alcatraz, which we've talked about on here extensively, especially back when it was first released and all the problems that were going on there. And the crazy part about that is the facility is actually still running. There was a lower court that was that temporarily tried to shut it down, but then another court stayed that decision. So basically, Alligator Alcatraz is like just caught up in litigation right now. And while it's being caught up in litigation, it continues to run. And then, of course, the argument or the stay, I think, claims that there is not to be any like new people sent there, that whoever's already there is just to be kept there, and is in other words, no new people are supposed to go there. Although, I question whether or not, who is actually over making sure that new people aren't going there. And then also the reporting that like thousands of people have just disappeared from Alligator Alcatraz. So it's bringing into a lot of question whether or not, people are just being disappeared, which was the intent of it. It's the reason why it was put on a landing strip, so that people could be processed in and then processed out immediately as fast as possible. And if actually new people aren't being sent there, but there's, disappearing people somehow to keep the numbers the same so that it looks like nobody's going or coming. That's something I majorly question. ICE pivots to warehouses. Warehouses identified by ICE to convert its immigration detention. So this is kind of a small map. I have a bigger purposed map here that's been broken down and showing all the locations. These in like black with the skulls is ones that have actually been purchased, and they've gone, through the whole process. These in blue, I think, are ones that kind of are in stalemate. Like or it's kind of unknown what right now, where the dealing is currently. And then the red is areas, locations that have been canceled or have far gone, whatever. One of them even being in Mississippi, which actually, crazy enough, our own U.S. Senator here, Republican Roger Wicker, had released a statement about how they were abandoning the plans for the facility. It was supposed to be a massive facility housing 8,500 people, and because of the community backlash in that area, they backed out of the plan. And don't get me wrong, Roger Wicker is more than likely perfectly okay with supporting a facility. But when you have, actual backlash from your constituents in a particular area, I mean, you kind of have to back out. Like, although he's already been like I think he's I don't even think he's up right now. I'd have to look into that. I'm not sure whether or not he's even up for reelection. I think he's was reelected the last time, so I think he is won't be back up for reelection for another couple of years. But either way, um, he he certainly is one that prefers for people to like him, though. Even though he, like, again, he probably perfectly fine with the facility and it being there or being anywhere in Mississippi. Mississippi has long been. I mean, we have a detention center already somewhere, I think, down in South Mississippi that houses around 4,000 people. And so again, but anyway, so yeah, there's all the 23 locations across the U.S. that are either already been bought, kind of in a stalemate, not sure what the operation or deal is at this point, and then locations that have kind of backed out. Little has been publicly shared about ICE's plan for the new detention centers in small towns and cities across the country. Already, many residents have voiced opposition, and local leaders are considering options to prevent the agencies from using them. The concerns include both immigration policy as well as land use issues, proximity to homes and schools, and questions of sewer capacity and water demand. Given such pushback and the logistic challenges, there's no guarantee each of the 23 sites will be converted. More than 200 people showed up to protest the warehouse plans in Hagerstown on January 20. In below freezing temperatures, one of the most obscene, one of the most inhumane, one of the most illegal operations being carried out by this Trump administration is what they're doing at the Department of Homeland Security and ICE. U.S. Senator Chris Van Hollen, a Maryland Democrat, told the protesters, "We do not want an ICE facility here in the state of Maryland." Van Hollen has been one of the big ones on this whole on ICE operations from the get-go, I think. DHS and ICE didn't respond to a detailed request for comment. Neither did the companies that sold the properties in Maryland, Arizona, and Texas. Fundrise, Rockefeller Group, and Flint Development, respectively. Of course, Rockefeller would be a part of this. The 23 proposed sites would range in size from 500 to 9,500 beds. If completed as planned, the largest facilities would be some of the biggest detention centers of any kind in the country. For example, the 9,500 bed facility ICE is planning for Hutchins, Texas. Of course, Texas would be the largest one. Could fit the entire average daily jail population of Dallas County with thousands of beds to spare. In recent weeks, the federal government has taken tours of potential sites in more than 20 cities to contractors and share with them the designs, including preferred layouts for at least 15 of the sites, according to to people familiar with the confidential process. Contractors, the ones who will turn these warehouses into jails, were required to send in their proposal for the first site in this week, starting with Hagerstown, according to their sources. To reach its goal of deporting 1 million people in a year, the Trump administration has said it needs more than 100,000 detention beds. Currently, there are more than 73,000 people in ICE custody, a record. The new sites could give the agency an additional 76,500 beds, according to documents shared with Bloomberg News. To fill all of them, the administration would have to expand immigration arrest beyond what is already doing. Deputy Legal Emma Wigger, Deputy Legal Department Director at the American Immigration Council. To reach these kinds of numbers, they need to go out into the community and find people who've been living their lives and been there a long time, Winger said. They'd have to dramatically increase their presence in communities across the country. ICE and Customs and Border Protection have already ramped up their presence and arrest in American streets. The estimated 3,000 immigration agents deployed in Minneapolis, St. Paul, is roughly 10 times the number sent last September to Chicago, a significant larger city. In January alone, federal immigration agents in the Twin Cities fatally shot 2 people, Renee Good and Alex Preddy. At least 6 people have died nationwide since Trump's crackdown began. As the administration increases its law enforcement efforts on the ground, it's also casting a wider net for the types of people who could end up in detention. More than 1 million people have had their temporary immigration statuses canceled since Trump returned to office. And that's one huge thing that the administration is also trying to do. Not only are they trying to go into cities all over the country and detain, anybody that they think are immigrants, even U.S. citizens, and then having to release them after the fact. They're also trying to cancel immigration statuses for those who are in the process, and also denaturalize citizens. Like, there's a rampant increase in that they are trying to push on the number of cases of naturalized citizens attempting to denaturalize them. Like, they are going to all extremes, every avenue that is connected to immigrants, according to them, which is, pretty much just anybody that's not white. Immigration officers have also arrested immigrants at routine court appearances and check-ins. More recently, in Minnesota, DHS said it's targeting 5,600 immigrants to re-verify. Wow, why does that look so weird? To re-verify their status claims. That has resulted in some people with legal statuses getting arrested, jailed, and flown to Texas for interviews before being released and forced to pay their own way home, according to lawyers and advocates. Cities identified by ICE. So these are all the cities that have been identified potentially for beds. You can see here there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 that will be considered like massive centers, like more longer term. Although from what I've seen, even those are like for people being processed within 60 days. The rest of these facilities are more short term. And from what I've seen, the administration wants to process people through these within literally days. So it's like these will be more spread out areas of operation, like operational areas that they are identifying. So you could actually look at these areas and see, okay, they plan on doing operations in these locations or close to these locations across the United States, where they will process through those locations within a matter of days to then send them to these larger locations. And then those locations, they're planning to be able to process within 60 days, within 2 months. They're planning on processing these people in and out. Process them where? Send them where? Do what with them where? It is quite wild to think that we are going to be able to process through people. And of course, their intention, they will claim that it's because they're going to be shipping them out, like sending them to wherever they, country they originate from or whatever the case. Kind of like what they were trying to do from the get-go, but there's so much pushback because we were not getting people having their rights to state their cases in court or whatever. They were just being grabbed up, put on a plane, and sent. And then it's the reason why there were so many reportings of people being sent that had absolutely no records or anything, because the administration was claiming that all these people were the worst of the worst, the criminals, blah, 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 and we're getting them out of our country. And then we come to find that like 90% of the people that they were, or more, that they were sending on these planes had no criminal record whatsoever. And they were not bad people. They were not bad people. They were just grabbing people up and sending them. And of course, we had them sent to CCOT. We have them sent all kinds. And of course, the backlash there. Then we started sending them alligator Alcatraz, and then the backlash there. And so then now they're trying to put them in other facilities. We've had plans. They attempted to send them to other countries, and that fell through. I mean, the legalities around this have been crazy, illegal, unconstitutional, this entire process. But they are continuing to do whatever they want to do to skirt around laws, to skirt around the Constitution, to skirt around legal avenues, any way they can to just get rid of people and get them out of here. And disappearing people, or we still don't know where they are. Thousands of people. It is just absolutely despicable how this administration is working. So yes, they're going. The idea is to short term these and then send them to these, which still is arguably short term. Unlike the cities where ICE and CBP agents have fanned out for arrest operations in recent months, many of the locations ICE has identified for its warehouse jails are in Republican-leaning areas. Still, residents in many of those chosen municipalities have been trying to block ICE's arrival. And I mean, it would make sense. Like a lot of these areas you see, Indiana, which is, not, there's quite a few parts of Indiana that are highly, Republican. Michigan, probably less so, but probably in this area it might be. Texas, certainly. New Hampshire, that one's kind of far-fetched. Not sure why they were attempting that one. Louisiana, Minnesota, that was a complete fall through. They pushed that one out. This one's also been pushed out pretty quickly. San Antonio, Texas, Oklahoma, Pennsylvania, both of Pennsylvania locations have went through. New Jersey, that one's kind of wild. Chester, New York, Arizona, Florida, Georgia, Virginia, Maryland. That's the one that's apparently went through too. I mean, these they clearly, they would want to choose warehouses in areas that are more Republican leaning because they are assuming that the residents there are Trumpers because potentially he did well as far as like voting in those counties or in those areas. But I think it's a fail from this administration to recognize that the actions that they are taking when it comes to immigration is not exactly falling in line with the regular American people and what they thought of. Now, why? We can argue why they thought that this wasn't going to be the process when you're literally claiming mass deportation. I mean, I guess maybe they were considering, the way that mass deportation kind of went under, I don't know, Bush or Obama. Maybe they were thinking like that. But I mean, Trump has always been one to want to look like he was way better than them. So of course he would go to extremes to make that happen. And the people that are in the administration, I mean, the sheer disconnect that Trump supporters to this point have had with identifying who these people are in this administration and what they really are about is just mind-boggling to me. Anyway, this month, demonstrators protested warehouse conversions in New Hampshire, Utah, Texas, and Georgia after the Washington Post published a earlier version of the conversion plan. In mid-January, a planned tour for contractors of a potential warehouse site in San Antonio was canceled after protests showed up for the same day, according to a person familiar with the scheduled visit. In Salt Lake City, the Ritchie Group, a local family business that owns the warehouse ICE identified as a future mega center jail, said it had no plans to sell or lease the property in question to the federal government after protesters show up at their offices to pressure them. Early in January in Merrimack, New Hampshire, around 1,200 people protested the conversion of a warehouse owned by real estate giant CBRE. In the village of Chester, New York, residents attended a community meeting to call on their leaders to stop ICE's plans in any way they could. The more than 400,000 square foot warehouse that ICE has its eyes on there is owned by the holding company of billionaire and former Trump advisor Carl Icahn. I guess that's how you say his name. Social Circle, Georgia, is one of the 15 locations where ICE has shared design details with contractors, marketing materials for the warehouse there, as well as brochures for sites in Mississippi, New Hampshire, New Jersey, Texas, and Pennsylvania. Highlight the suitability for commerce, distribution, and logistics. Some of their sites, their proximities to large stores such as Walmart. Eric Taylor, Social Circle's city manager, said this week that he still hasn't received any communication from federal officials about plans there for a 8,500 bed detention center. Taylor said that the town is roughly 5,000 people, doesn't have the infrastructure to host the planned facility. The city has 17 sworn police officers and 14 firefighters, and its water and sewage capacity is already maxed out. Taylor said adding that property tax on the warehouse would drop to zero. Property taxes on the warehouse would drop to zero if acquired by the federal government. The building is also close to the town's new elementary school. As you see here, facility, new elementary school, basically right around the corner there, within a few miles. Local governments are limited to what they can do to prevent ICE from opening and operating a detention facility, even if it doesn't meet local zoning requirements. That's because federal action typically supersedes local rules, though it can become more complicated when private companies are doing things on behalf of the federal government. Municipalities will have other tools to stall or inhibit ICE's work. The federal government can't force a municipality to build a new public road or other utilities because a federal facility needs it. And many of the warehouses have their sewage and water systems serviced by municipalities, which means they could have a say over whether it has the capacity to meet a large jail's demand. The Trump administration's push to make 3,000 immigration arrests per day and its insistence that those adjudicating their cases do so from detention has created an intense demand for jail space. It has gone through multiple iterations of plans to massively expand its detention capacity. In the early days of the Trump's second term, ICE leveraged long-standing relationships with their private prison companies such as Core Civic and Geo Group to boost detention space. Those companies gave ICE access to additional beds in their existing jails, purchased and leased new facilities, and reopened shuttered ones. Those companies said in November earnings calls that they still have a total of more than 30,000 beds that they could bring online if asked by the federal government. To continue to believe that the detention beds like these represent the best value and are the most humane, most efficient logistically, have the highest audit compliance scores in their system, are more secure, weatherproof, and are readily available than Core Chief Executive said in the company's earnings call. Yet by the middle of last year, the Trump administration had pivoted to a plan that was outlined in Project 2025, using soft-sided facilities for tents to quickly erect new detention camps. ICE created a short list of potential partners, which included a number of companies that typically build emergency tent camps in the wake of national disasters. 2 large camps grew out of that strategy, which of course is the Alligator Alcatraz, run by Republicans, and a federal-run camp on a military base in El Paso, Texas. And of course, we know that's where a lot of the one in El Paso is where a lot of these immigrants have been sent here lately, especially from Michigan. But they have come under major allegations of excessive force, sexual abuse, and threats to coerce non-Mexican nationals to cross into Mexican desert. ICE has denied allegations of abuse and said all people being deported are given due process protections. Yeah, bullshit. At least 3 people have died in the camp over the past 2 months. January 3rd, Geraldo Lunes Campos, a 55-year-old Cuban immigrant, died at the facility following a struggle with detention staff. Federal officials told the Washington Post that officers were attempting to restrain Campos during a suicide attempt. An autopsy report later released by the medical examiner stated that the death was a homicide and that he was asphyxiated after being restrained by law enforcement. Victor Manuel Diaz, 36, died in what ICE also said was a presumed suicide. Those incidents came amid a rising number of deaths in ICE detention since Trump returned to the White House. More than 30 people died in detention last year, the highest figure in 2 decades. And Campos and Diaz are 2 of the 6 people who have died in the agency's custody from the beginning of this year. A report from the American Immigration Council attributes the cost of many of the last year's deaths in ICE facility ICE's failure to provide adequate medical care. Yeah, this is major. A major issue, a major concern that this administration is ramping up, trying to secretly buy up warehouses to basically turn into concentration camps. And we've already seen reports, that we've covered about these other facilities and the inhumane, horrible conditions that people are living in. Like in Alligator Alcatraz, it would rain and flood constantly. People were getting like horrible food in both locations, food that was molded or, had parasites and stuff in it, or, they weren't being treated effectively in medical concerns, not receiving medicines properly. There's all kinds of conditionary things, lights being left on all the time, or just horrible conditions. People being mistreated, abused, and they're just wanting to ramp that up. Their plan was 23 facilities. I think only like 7 of which have been actually acquired. And around 7 or so, have had fallen through, and the others are kind of in no man's land as far as them purchasing them. But they're attempting to do this as quietly as possible. Like I said, in the 7 areas or so that they have actually purchased it, a lot of those areas, the people didn't even know about it until after the fact, and then they've been protesting since, or they even with some protesting, they were still able to acquire the facility. But the rest of the other that have fallen through have been under pressure of communities going, no. Even in Republican communities that more than likely to some degree agree with, deportation of the bad and, horrible criminal immigrants that the administration claims that they are doing. But they're also recognizing that the administration is not exactly pinpointing that out. And they're not exactly just grabbing up the worst of the worst. They're grabbing up literally fucking anybody. Anybody that just looks brown, looks or sounds, has an accent. I mean, we've seen reports over and over again where agents are basically profiling off of just the fact that, oh, they sound like they have an accent. Or because of tattoos, that was the big thing from the beginning. And they claim that they were, gang tattoos or something like that, which they were not. I mean, these people are the worst. They're grabbing up. They are hiring the worst of the worst, going through minimal training, people who basically are just bigots and racist. They're hiring them to become and do these operations for ICE. It's just despicable. It's absolutely despicable. This is a guy, Immigrant Insider, published this. Is Pablo Manriquez, whatever. He has been a reporter journalist for many years now, a couple of decades now, I think. Out of Washington, he's been on Capitol Hill. He's reported for. He has done some reporting from some outlets and stuff on immigration issues and how Washington is handled certain things over the years. And so he's very much an accredited journalist by many means, in standards. But he has his own personal website here where he puts out and talks about things that are going on in Washington, from and a lot of times breaking things, like releasing stuff that's not previously known, or things that he was able to get a hold of. And this is actually a pretty interesting layout of information here that he does in this. How the Pentagon is quietly building Trump's concentration camps. But the one thing that's being pointed out specifically out of this article is this right here, the medical and death section here, where it states the services extend to medical waste management with specific protocols for biohazard incinerators and certified inventory of evidence reports for full service laundry operations. And people are quickly jumping to the fact that there are biohazard incinerators being potentially contracted into these facilities. All right, these mass confinement facilities, facilities that where it also states that house up to 10,000 people each. Contract lines include everything from 300 square meters closed tents to 1,000 lux lighting to large barbecue grills and industrial scale shower facilities. The vehicle surveillance and control, the vehicle mandates force protection services, including HESCO, earthfield defensive barriers, 8-foot high Conex box walls, and weather resistant guard shacks. And this is now, and the question is being brought up here that the biohazard incinerators, that this could potentially be used to just literally incinerate people. And this is being brought up as a concern because we've already seen where people have just been disappeared and we don't know where they've gone. And if you're going to process through multiple, the idea is that they're wanting to get rid of millions of people and do this mass deportation, 300,000 a day. Where are all these people going to go? Even the facility, even if you were to acquire 23 facilities that would be able to house an additional 70,000 people, that still doesn't, and process through, that still doesn't add up. And then also being able to process out that many people on a daily, if you're bringing in 300,000 per day, that doesn't add up. These facilities at max, or even the big ones, are supposed to hold 60 days. So people are bringing into question whether or not these biohazard incinerators are really going to be placed there to literally disappear people. And while on the surface you think, well, it says this is for medical waste management, and these facilities have to, because they're going to have medical capabilities. They have to by regulation. Now, how well those facilities are ran, and the medical operations are done is a whole nother story. But because of regulations, they must have a medical unit on each of these each of these sites. And with a medical unit comes medical waste management, because you have to manage all different types of medications, needles, all these different things, medical tools and products that need to be handled for the safety of everybody, not just even the people that are being held there, but also even employees. So this is something that certainly has to be placed there, regardless. And the biohazard incinerators is a way of handling that medical waste, burning it in a controlled way. So I do see and understand where you can jump to an argument. Okay, but this administration is so extreme and dire, and desperate to get as many people out as they can. And there's no way the math is mathing. There's just no way the math is mathing for them to do what they really want to do. I can see the leap. I can see the leap of, well, who knows? Might be some here and there just disappeared and tossed into this incinerator. Oops. Don't know where that person went. Oops. Don't know where that person went. That would be wild. And while I want to say that there's no way that this administration would be that callous, be that horrible to allow anything like that to be operated. But all evidence that I've seen from this administration so far, and how they are addressing not only this situation but multiple others issues, the rhetoric that they have towards not only immigrants, in the things that they are calling them, but even for those, and the way they are, the rhetoric towards protesters, calling at this point anybody who even opposes the administration domestic terrorists, and working into operations and judicial consequences around domestic terrorists, to where they can just arrest protesters and charge them with domestic terrorism. And of course, all the defense around the Epstein files and all that. It is clear, becoming more and more and more and more clear, that this administration is, at this point, unknowingly evil, to the depths, and how deep they can go and insidious and evil that they can go. I understand looking at something like this and going, holy fuck. Could this possibly be an operation that will be done? Could this potentially be used to disappear people? And while a part of me goes, there's no fucking way. There's no they can't possibly be that fucking evil. But then I see all this other shit and I go, maybe. Fuck. Maybe. I'm not saying on a mass scale, but like there when you have a government that is secretly trying to build out concentration camps all over the country to house people that they deem as evil, horrible, despicable, the worst of the worst people in our society, under the guise of illegal immigration. An administration that is rhetorically identifying anyone who protests them as domestic terrorists and the worst of the worst and people who, quote unquote, hate America. An administration that is eliminating all kinds of assistance to people all across the country, but on the same note, protecting rapists and drug smugglers and pardoning all kinds of right-wing extremists. Those of which afterwards have committed crimes and been put back in jail for heinous acts. Administration who's threatened countries, allies, threatening to take countries, doing operations to remove leadership. This is an administration who is completely fucking out of control. Beyond what I think any of us honestly could have imagined. An administration who is now even threatening all kinds of operations and procedures and to do whatever they can to control elections this year. And try to guarantee that they stay in power. An administration where the head is constantly joking about I don't even know why we have elections. Wouldn't it be interesting if it would be interesting if I, had another term. That would be interesting, right? I mean, I've got such great numbers. We are living in a moment in time where this people in power in this administration, this regime, this fascist, authoritarian, regime is doing whatever they can to carry out these worst of the worst policies and conditions that they can possibly carry out, the things that they want so badly, their version of what they consider a great America, and remain in power as long as possibly to make sure that they can carry it out unilaterally, going over and trying to push the bar on laws and the Constitution and everything that this country has built itself on. While claiming that they are the true patriots and true Americans. And anybody who's opposed to their actions are terrorists. At this point, I don't put anything past this administration. I don't. I don't put anything past them. I don't put any action, horrifically evil action, in placing certain things for quote unquote one reason, but then it being used for additional reasons. It's time. I can't express this enough. It is time. MAGA, Trump supporters out there that are still left, it's time to wake the fuck up and realize what is going on, what this administration is about, what these people are trying to do. They are absolutely ruining this country, not only domestically, but internationally as well. They are erasing decades and decades and decades of advancement and progression in our society for understanding and acceptance and compassion in moving in a way where the actual original idea for this country to be literally for all could have at some point actually be like true. And this administration is completely erasing that. Decades and decades and decades of progress. Because they want to take us back. They want to take us back to a time where they felt like they had more power and more control. And certain people didn't have a say-so. People of color, even people of different sex. They're wanting to take us back to a time where only a few had the ability to create laws and to manage and control the way this country functioned. This is not about making America great for everybody. It's about making America great again for them. and making it literal hell on earth for everyone else. Let me know what you think. Until next time, peace. Clear Talk. I'm out.